Welcome back to Project Reworked. In this episode, I restore a motorbike seat cover for Andy's A100. Andy painstakingly unpicks the stitches in the seat cover. It's not an easy task with a regular unpicker, so he resorts to using a Stanley knife to cut the thread. I lay the black PVC material on the floor and use the old seat pieces as the pattern. Okay, so making this pattern is a bit of a challenge. I've not actually ever done a car seat before, or a bike seat, sorry, motorbike seat. I haven't done a car seat either. So it can't be any different than a normal couch seat, you would have thought, but it is slightly. Now this, I should imagine when you saw me watching the pin in the pan, the actual seat, the old original seat, is actually moulded. Now I'm thinking it might have had a bit of a heat treatment of some sort to tighten up the fabrics to make it fit to the cushion as such, the foam out on the seat, because it just naturally takes its form. It doesn't help, it's really grimy and dirty. So it's very hard to pin down as a pattern. The seat itself isn't quite so bad, though it's very brittle and kept falling to pieces. So I'm gonna, because look, I mean, I'm struggling to make that fit. So I'm actually gonna cut it and make it actually bigger than it really needs to be, because it's easier to trim it down afterwards than it is to add bits. It was a bit of a challenge, because this is just curly, and it just keeps going out of shape. And here, you can see it's all puckered up here. I've tried to flatten it out as best I can, but here's going to be puckered up. So my worry is that when I've cut it and sewn it, tried to sew it to the actual seat itself, that it's going to have that puckering where it's not tight and fitted. And I don't know if you've watched channels before where they've refitted seats, and it never quite fits the same as it does on the manufacturing thing, and you think, really, that's really crap. I got a feeling this is going to be the same, and that worries me, because I don't like that. So anyway, we'll see. I don't know whether if I can heat it with something and it will, the fibres will shrink and help it mould into shape. I don't know, but I'll have to do a bit of Googling and see how they do it when they manufacture it properly. Now this is to go around the outside, and it's to hold it tight, and it's actually got a bit of metal in it, which we'll reuse, but it doesn't fit the whole thing. When it looks like they've never used it in a whole piece, it's been cut up into pieces. So I'm going to cut it into pieces. It's going to have joins. I'm not going to sit there and waste my time trying to measure it out, unpick it all and measure it out properly, because it's too this bit actually, out of all of it, is really disgustingly dirty. I don't know why. So I'm just going to measure it, see how it is, and just do lengths of strips. They're just, originally I would have thought they were just square, straight strips sewn together, and then the metals formed the shape. Whereas this is actually formed its own shape, and it is quite hard and crispy, unlike the plastic. I know it's really old, and therefore it will be old and crispy as such, but I got a feeling that's why. I think it's had some kind of treatment on it to shrink it, and that's why it's crispy. But anyway, well, that's something I'm going to have to do. So I'm just going to measure this and cut some strips.
But before I can measure and cut out the strips, I need to cut out the rest of the pattern so the material lies flat. After a quick measure, I mark on the material 4 centimeters and draw a straight line before cutting 3 pieces, 1 long piece and 2 short. The length at the moment is a guesstimate because I would rather make it longer than it needs to be and then cut it to length once it's attached to the bottom of the seat cover. I quickly sew the 3 strips of material together. They didn't bother in the old cover, but I think it will look better. Now that's done, I can start making the piping. I fold the edge over to 1.5 centimeters and pin into place before sewing. With that done, I can pin the rear gusset to the seat pad.
That actually pinned together better than I thought it was going to. In the original, it has the stitching, you can see, it has the stitching on the outside. Now, because this is back in the day, I don't know how old this bike is, but it's pretty old. They used cotton, and now, unfortunately, today's we don't use that. We have nylon, so most of my cotton that I have is nylon thread. I do have some real cotton somewhere. Yeah, it's real cotton, but obviously that's not the right colour. I reckon it could look quite fancy, maybe having a bead around the outside in gold. What do you reckon? I don't think Andy would be impressed like that. This is the actual motorbike seat without the cover on, obviously. And you can see that the foam has started to fall to pieces and pretty old. It's really crumbly. It's like an overcooked biscuit, actually. If you're explaining on one way or another. So all the bits are falling off. And obviously, at some point, this must have been recovered. And they've put this nice bit of foam in and didn't bother moulding it properly. And so there's big chunks in it. Turn it round. So there's lots of bits that are falling off. And there's a chunk taken out the front. So my thinking is that I have some leftover wadding from when I did my chairs. Trying to shape it better. Put some wadding over the whole top of it just to try and smooth out all the imperfections that are in there, because there's quite a few all over it. And then see how it goes. So I'll give it a go, but I'm not sure how good this is going to be. Normally you can just use a bread knife to cut it, but because this is quite so old, I'm worried that it might just crumble and disappear. And this is quite thin. But anyway, it needs shaving because you can feel the hump, and it wouldn't have had a big hump and lumps like this in it. So we'll give it a go and see. Yes, I thought. It's not working. Yeah, so I'm making it worse instead of better. I wonder how bad it is right underneath it, actually. Oh, it's had a fire at some point. There you go. That's what that was hiding. It's obviously caught on fire. Anyway, that's smoothed out a bit better than I thought it was going to. I didn't think I'd be able to get it as smooth as that, to be fair. The little steak knife actually worked better than the bread knife. Because it got into smaller gaps. So I've managed to smooth out the lumps. Now one thing we did notice, and I was just chatting to Andy just then, he was checking my work, this is the line where the old cover came. And we were just chatting and I was saying, oh, I draw the line. And then I realised that there's a nice tied line where the original would have been. So the original would have been here. Now I'm in a dilemma. Do I continue and make the cover as per the old one, or the one that was taken off, sorry, or do I take the line of the original and change it? And I got a feeling the back would have come here too.
After a quick ponder, I decided to make the cover as original. Well, as original as possible. It will never be an exact replica. I cut 2 pieces of wadding to the shape of the seat to hide all the imperfections. Then I pinned the front gusset to the main pad. From the image you can see I've already started pinning the piping to the bottom of the cover. This is so I can check there is sufficient depth to attach it to the underside. I don't want the cover to be loose, so I make it fit snugly to the seat. Once I'm happy with the size, I sew all the remaining pieces together.
Okay, so I'm at the stage now I've sewn it all up and the bottom's in. I haven't put the metal in yet, so that's going to go around, that's going to hold it into place. Now the dilemma I have is, do I stitch there has an outer stitching, and do I stitch it on the bottom all the way around? And this basically makes it a nicer finish. So as it's now, you can see it's all curled up. So when you stitch it, it will flatten it out, which is what we need to do. Or the other thought was, do you go above? Anyway, so that is my dilemma. Do I go above or below the part? I have tried looking and Googling online to see what the original was like, and it's really hard to tell. So that's why my dilemma is. I wanted to try and make it as original as possible, but unfortunately I can't get a good enough quality picture to be able to do that. At the moment, I'm lying on going below. Only purely because I think it looks slightly better. I don't know if it really is that much difference, but I think it looks slightly better. So I'm not sure if you noticed, I'm having a little bit of issues with sewing this. I think the old machine has done its time. It's not wanting to go through the material. So this bit is annoying because it's thicker. So you're going through technically 3 pieces of material now. PVC actually in this case is not even material. I did sample tests and I could get it working, and it started off stitching reasonably nice stitches, and then it just went into meltdown. I can't be bothered to do it anymore mode, and all the stitches are really tiny tight together. I was struggling to make it go through the machine. It's getting tighter and tighter, and then just stopped. And there was a massive loop mess at the back. And I'm not sure whether it's a combination of the PVC, the thick thread, or the fact that the machine is over 40 years old. But there isn't any power left in the motor. So you're trying to push it, you're trying to put the pedal down, and it just dies. And so you can see why you need to sew it, because obviously it gives you a nicer finish, in the sense it's nice and flat, whereas if I leave it, it is going to be all up, and you're never going to be able to make that flatten down even if you spray glue it. So it needs to be stitched. I just can't do it on this machine. Oh well, it's not getting finished today.
Luckily, I've managed to borrow a Janone Sterling sewing machine, and it's working a treat, which is a good and bad. Good because I now can finish the seat cover, and bad because it sadly means I need to retire the old Jones and get a new one.
There you go. It's actually done it. I'm really pleased. So that's my old machine. The stitching isn't great. And then this one. It's quite tight together actually, a lot tighter than I wanted it, but I think that's because it's such thick material and the thread is really thick. Now, I did have a bit of a glitch here, and that's where I was fighting with the material, where it was so much of it going around. You might have seen me fighting, trying to get it in, and I stupidly lifted my foot off the foot off the machine, and it changed direction. I must have moved it within, and so then it's gone back on track. So that's quite annoying. So I might try and see if I can unpick that just so I can get it straight. Yes, I know it's very problematic and I'm being a bit stupid. It is just a motorbike cover after all, but that's me and my OCD. But it's not bad. It's not the neatest of stitching, I've got to admit. It is not the neatest of stitching. It's actually quite difficult because you've got to try and flatten it out. It's quite thick and bulky, and you've got the machine and where it's all stuck. So it's actually, so it's not my neatest of work, but it's not bad. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, so I'm pleased that actually worked. Now I've just got to go around the bottom. This is the wire that they use to thread through the thing. I'm not actually sure whether this was the original wire. I reckon this could be an old coat hanger, possibly. They've tried to unwind. It's not great, but it's what I've got. So I'm just going to thread it through the end, the bottom part. Anyway, so I'm going to take the ends up with the gaffer tape, and that'll hold it together, hopefully. Well, no, it will, because gaffer tape holds everything together, apparently. You can even make a boat out of gaffer tape. Maybe that could be my next challenge to do. Anyway, so I'm going to hold that, and then I'm going to trim the ends off to make it a bit neater. I'm not going to sew them together. It's not going to fray, so it doesn't really matter. because it's PVC, so it can't fray. But I need to make sure that they're just long enough, so I might make one slightly longer than the other, and then I can push the ends inside the other one. Does that make sense? So that it hides it and makes it look a bit neater, so it's not in the way. And then that's it. All then I'll have to do is just put it on the bike seat and tie it up.
Using glue spray adhesive, I give a light coating to the rear of the seat and on the wadding and wait a few seconds before sticking into place. It doesn't take long to hold fast, so if you plan to do this yourself, make sure the pieces fit, because you won't be able to keep taking them on and off, not without ruining the wadding. Make sure when you're spraying the adhesive glue, the overspray doesn't get onto anything that can't be washed, because it will get really sticky. I stretch the side of the seat cover down over the hooks on the underside. It is a bit of a challenge. I want it to be really tight, but I also want the seams to be symmetrical, so I swap from side to side to make sure the tension is the same.
I have managed to tie them all in underneath. So I hammered down all the little clips. I reckon they could have been done with some more, but you know, that's what they were. It's a bit baggy in some places. That's all tied down, and the cover is now fit. I'm still not quite convinced about this bit, but there's not a lot I can do about that. It's just how it is. Without a real proper pattern from the manufacturers, it's very hard to try and make it. But what you can't see is the bad imperfections of the foam that was part of the seat. So that's all gone. So that's nice and smooth. This is quite nice and tight. There's meant to be a strap that goes over the back, which I will try and see if I can fashion. It didn't have that on the seat that when we bought it, but we do know that that's how they are when they were originally manufactured. So that's something I'm going to have to put on, but I'm not quite sure where it connects on the seat, whether that's where it's connected here on these screws, which will become a problem because obviously that one's sheared off, that bolt. And the only way of actually getting to that is by taking it all apart and taking the foam off, putting the bolt in, and then connecting it. So not sure. I'll have to think about how I'm going to do that, if that's plausible. But I think that's how they would have done. I think they would have held it on here. Might have to go without one. Maybe that's why they never had one, because they snapped the bolt off. Anyway, so for now, the seat is complete.
Thanks for watching Project Reworked. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please leave a comment and do the usual like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It certainly doesn't make me anything, but it does make me smile that people like what I'm creating. Until next time.